Hi there, my name is Tara Murphy and I'm the Schools and Colleges Liaison Manager at Royal Holloway, University of London, and this is your university guide for parents, guardians and supporters. In today's video, we'll cover three key areas. Firstly, we'll look at how to support your child in selecting a university course and applying via UCAS. We'll talk about student finance, and finally, we'll discuss how you can support your child in this major life transition. UCAS stands for the Universities and College Admission Service, and it's the one-stop shop for researching and applying to universities within the UK. You can use this course finder service to research what universities across the UK do the subject that your child's interested in. I recommend using the filter service so that you can be more specific in your search. To support your child in choosing the university that's right for them, I recommend using the college checklist. C stands for course. Does the university do the course that your child's interested in? If it does, look at things like the lecturer's research and example modules to see if it does the topics they're interested in. Remember, history at one university will be completely different to history at another. Next, look at opportunities. Can you study abroad, do a year in industry, what societies and socials can they join? Next is location. Do they want to live at home and commute, or do they want to move out? And how far do they want to go? Another thing to think about is whether they prefer to go to a city university or a campus. After that, we have league tables. There are a number of things you can look up, from student satisfaction to how a course does to how a university does as well. Entry requirements will let the child know if they're on track to get into that university. Normally it will say what they're required to get in things such as A-levels, but it will also say if there's any specific subjects they need to study or additional exams they need to take. The gut feeling's really up to them. What do they feel when they go to the university and speak to people who have been there? And finally, education style. How are they assessed and what's the teaching style? The key here is to start early. You can order and download prospectuses right now, and you can visit campus. Maybe that's virtually or also on open days. The UCAS process has 12 steps. Some key ones for you to be aware of include in step 2 when they input their personal details. Here they can grant something called nominated access, which means someone else can speak to universities and UCAS on their behalf, for example, a parent. If they don't grant this, then we won't be able to speak to you for data protection reasons. They also need to input their choices. They are allowed to input up to 5 choices of courses. This could either be at multiple institutions or at the same. However, they only make one personal statement for all 5 courses, so it's important that their courses are in a similar area. A personal statement is a persuasion essay. It's explaining to people who work in universities why they're an excellent candidate. Key things they'll want to explain is their understanding of the subject, their ability to be a part of a community, and also independent thought and research. A way you can support your child to build their personal statement is by encouraging wider research. This could be through podcasts, documentaries, TED Talks, summer schools, attending public buildings such as Crown Courts, and getting them to show that they've done more than just their schoolwork. Some key dates for you to be aware of. In the summer before they apply, typically the summer after year 12, they'll need to do their research and prepare their personal statement. The 15th of October is the deadline for Oxford and Cambridge, and also medicine, veterinary science and dentistry. The 15th of January is the overall UCAS deadline. However, your child's school will likely have an earlier one to get their reference in. And March is the deadline for some creative courses. Once the application is sent, it will be received by the admission services at the 5 different institutions that they applied to. They will review the application and give you 1 of 3 responses. One response is a conditional offer. That means they've received a place at that university studying that course, but it depends on certain criteria. Typically that they get certain grades in their results, which will come out later in the year. The next is an unconditional offer. This means that they have been guaranteed a place with no set criteria. And finally, the third is that they'll be unsuccessful. In the spring term, they'll then need to assess the responses they've had and make their firm and insurance choice. A firm is your first choice and an insurance is your backup. There are 3 things that can happen on results day. Firstly is that they're accepted to their firm. This means they've reached the grades or the university has accepted them. If they did much better than expected, they could also enter adjustment, where they can look for courses with higher grade boundaries. Next, they'll be accepted to their insurance if they don't quite meet the criteria of their firm. And finally, the last thing that could happen if they don't meet the criteria of their firm or insurance is that they enter clearing. This means they can search for alternative courses across the UK. They'll need to phone the university directly to see if they'll accept them, and once they find an appropriate course, they'll need to add this to their UCAS track. Results day can be extremely stressful, and clearing more so. Ways in which you can reduce the stress is if your child does enter clearing, sit them down and write down all the courses that they may be interested in. Make sure to have their grades at the ready so that when they're on the phone, they can hand them over quickly. Next, I'm going to talk about student finance and refer specifically to Student Finance England. If you're from a different nation within the UK, then be aware that rules are different there. There are two types of loan, the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan. The tuition fee loan is paid directly to universities and covers the full tuition fee, currently set by the government at £9,250 a year. All students are entitled to the full amount. The maintenance loan is paid directly to students and is to cover all their living costs. It is dependent on the household income and also if students study in London or outside of it, or if they're living in the parental home or outside of it. Both loans aren't repaid until the April after the students graduate and only if they're earning enough. Maintenance loans are awarded on a sliding scale, and I've given you some examples on the screen of what people have received in previous years. How it's important to use the student finance calculator to work out exactly what your child can earn. The key thing here is to realise that it's done on a household income. If your child comes from a household where parents live separately, it's typically the parent that they're most financially dependent on or they spend the most time with that counts. If they live in a household with a step-parent or partner, their income will also count towards the household. This is probably the first time you've ever taught figures with your child, but it's important to do this as early as possible so they can start to budget their money and figure out if they'll need a part-time job or if there's any bursaries or scholarships that they could apply for. Student loans aren't like any other loan you've heard of. To begin with, you don't have to start repaying it until the April after you've graduated. Your child will only repay 9% over the threshold and it will be deducted from their payslip in the same way that tax is. After 30 years, no matter how much debt is left, the remaining amount will be wiped. The current threshold for Plan B, meaning anyone who attended university using student finance after 2012 with the increase in tuition fees, is £27,295. If your child had a yearly salary of £27,296, that would mean they'd be £1 over the threshold and would need to pay back 9p per year. For anyone who attended university prior to 2012, they're on something called Plan A. And while their tuition fees were lower, so is their threshold. So in the same space of time, if they earned the same salary, within a year they would pay £666 and 9p. The key here is to remember that you only pay 9% above the threshold. So if you go anywhere below it to 0 or any number under it, you don't pay anything. Each year the threshold tends to move slightly, so it's good to keep an eye and check what it is. Additional government support your child may be able to access include the Disabled Students Allowance. For example, say if they have dyslexia, they may be able to access special equipment or programs. Another is a travel grants if they're studying abroad and come from a low-income family, and also dependence and childcare grants. Another form of support available to your child at university is scholarships and bursaries. They could be awarded for a wide range of reasons, including personal background, such as parental income and if they're their first in their family to go to university, if they excel in an area, such as their grades or the arts, or if they complete tasks, such as essays. They're not always cash. It could be things like a tuition fee reduction, equipment and activities paid for. They're usually split in two ways. Firstly is institution specific, so only students attending that university can receive those specific scholarships. It's good to research these when you're looking at different universities. The other is UK and international wide. This means that all people can apply to them if they meet the criteria and are normally awarded by charities and companies. There are genuinely thousands of scholarships out there. Some specific to Royal Holloway include the Royal Holloway Bursary. For students with a household income under £25,000, they'll receive £1,500 per year. We had 3 Future Leaders Scholarships for students with high A-levels and leadership skills. They'll receive 3 full years of a tuition waiver worth £27,750. There's also international and UK ones, including one for vegetarians and vegans from the Vegetarian Charity. I recommend using Scholarship Hub to research these more. Finally, some things to think about in supporting your child in this major life transition is to talk to them about budgeting. This may be the first time that they've received large chunks of money through their Student Finance England, or that they've had to buy their own shopping. Talk to them about how to build a budget and make things like cheap meals. Also, you're going to want to explain more things to them about independent living, whether that's learning how to pay bills, how to get on with different types of people, or simple things like doing their own laundry, and also their well-being. It's good to look up what a university does in terms of well-being and support and how you can help them in this transition. And that's all from me. To find out more about anything to do with university, you can use the websites on screen. To find out more about Royal Holloway, a campus-based university in Egham, Surrey, just 40 minutes by train to Waterloo and 7 miles from Heathrow, you can go to our website royalholloway.ac.uk.